The concept of entering a different world after death is explained, defining it as a chance to live a second life. A boy with stitched-up skin and mismatched hair awakens amidst flowers, looking at his bandaged hands and wondering if this is his second life. He sits up in a panic, questioning what is happening and concluding with dread that he must be a zombie, as the narration introduces the story of an unfortunate high schooler in another world. The first episode, titled A Patchwork World Reincarnation, begins. In a quiet room, one person's hand presses down on another's atop a bed. The high schooler, Arikawa, pleads with his senpai to wait a moment, but she leans over him on the bed, insisting she can't hold back any longer. As she moves, her shirt falls open, revealing her black lace bra. Arikawa erupts into a massive nosebleed, flustered and apologizing profusely for the sight. He turns away from his senpai, utterly overwhelmed by the situation. He internally berates himself for ruining the atmosphere he finally created, while his mind races with thoughts of how erotic and good his senpai smells. The scene flashes back to an hour earlier, with Arikawa recalling how he finally managed to get his senpai, Momoka, to invite him to her place after a high school party celebrating the basketball team. During the party, he had been watching Momoka from afar, and when she turned and smiled at him, he blushed furiously. Momoka approached Arikawa at the party, pointing out that he had been staring at her the entire time. She leaned in close to a flustered Arikawa, telling him that she had noticed his attention for a long time. With a coy smile, she suggested they skip the after-party, mentioning that her house was nearby. Back at her house, the 16-year-old high school sophomore, Arikawa Ugi, who has never had a girlfriend, waits nervously for his first time while his senpai tells him she's going to take a shower and that he should stop his nosebleed. He sits on the bed, thinking that even if she has a boyfriend and is just toying with him, having his first time with someone so cute and sexy would be a wish fulfilled, and he wouldn't mind dying the next day. A sudden thud from outside the bedroom door catches Arikawa's attention. A strange man stands in the doorway, holding a large kitchen knife. Arikawa watches in stunned confusion as the man walks toward the bed where he is sitting. The intruder raises the knife and plunges it directly into Arikawa's stomach. The man stabs him repeatedly as Arikawa's mind fills with pain and the frantic questions of why this is happening and whether he is going to die. With the blade still embedded in him, his last thoughts turn to the despair of dying after coming so close to losing his virginity. Tears stream down his face as he thinks about how much he hates this outcome. In his final moments, he desperately prays to God, Buddha, or even a demon, begging for help because he doesn't want to die like this. A disembodied voice suddenly breaks through the darkness, asking if he really desires to live that badly. Arikawa, now a floating soul, asks who the voice belongs to, and it explains that it sensed his strong, lingering regret before confirming that he was the source of it. He immediately begs for help. The voice agrees to help but apologizes, stating that it's impossible to return his body to its original state and that he must therefore make a choice. The entity presents him with two options: to face death as he is or to choose to live on as someone else. Considering a second life as a different person, he instantly accepts the offer, screaming for a new life. The voice acknowledges his decision and tells him it sees his destination, but as a bright light appears, he asks it to wait, confused by the sudden development. He tries to protest, demanding an explanation about the body he is supposed to be entering, but his voice is cut off as he's pulled into the light. Voices announce that the hero has been revived. He jolts awake inside a stone coffin, looking at his stitched body in shock as onlookers proclaim his return a miracle. A crowd gathers, expressing their amazement that the resurrection magic was a success. They weep with joy, declaring that with the hero's return, humanity is finally saved. He looks around, confused by the celebratory mood and the crying people, wondering where he is and what happened after he died. He then recalls the voice telling him that the body he would enter would be the voice's own. The name, Hero Edmonds, is announced, and he stares at his reflection in horror, realizing the patchwork body is now his. He rejects this supposed second life, panicking as he realizes he has become a zombie. A hand suddenly covers his mouth, and a calm voice instructs him not to say anything unnecessary. A cloaked figure addresses a king, suggesting the confused hero be taken to rest, while a woman in a hood agrees, stating that raising the dead is a noble cause and it was her honor. In a private room, the woman removes her hand and tells him it's fine to speak, prompting him to immediately ask who she is and what is going on. She introduces herself as Hecate, a magician, and explains that she is the one who resurrected the hero. He stares at her, his mind filled with questions he needs to ask. His attention is drawn to a bound and gagged figure in the corner of the room, and he asks who it is, to which Hecate replies by asking if he is curious. Hecate explains that the person is restrained because she tried to bite her own tongue to kill herself, but reassures him that it's not a problem. Hecate removes the gag, revealing a frightened young girl with long blonde hair, bound with ropes and talismans. He stares, confused, asking Hecate what she means by her explanation. The girl suddenly erupts in a tearful rage, screaming that her name isn't Ophelia, demanding to know where she is, and insisting she's a proper Japanese person. He is shocked, realizing this girl must be in the same situation as him, just as Hecate confirms that she is the one who resurrected both of them. Hecate addresses them both, stating that she understands their bodies are now inhabited by someone else, and asks them to share their stories. After a lengthy explanation from both parties, Hecate takes in the information. She lets out a sigh, admitting that she had wondered who she was bringing back but hadn't expected to summon people from another world. Hecate begins to explain the situation, stating that this world of swords and magic is on the brink of ruin due to the demon lord, and the heroes' party that went to defeat him was completely annihilated, so she was ordered to resurrect the bodies they managed to retrieve. However, she continues, the souls of the fallen party members themselves refused to be resurrected. When she called out to the souls of the heroes, she got no response from anyone except the hero himself, who also refused but pleaded to be excused if another soul would take his place. Recalling the talk of a handover just before he was reincarnated, he listens as Hecate explains that since he has taken the hero's body, he must now take over the hero's job. She formally identifies him as Hero Edmund and the Japanese girl as Priest Ophelia. With a serious expression, Hecate gives them their mission. As the new hero and priest, they must defeat the demon lord. He reacts with pure, unadulterated shock. He frantically rejects the idea, shouting that being a hero means fighting monsters, which is impossible for him, but Hecate calmly states the original hero agreed to a handover that includes a way to fight properly. Both he and the priest refuse the task, with him pointing out the cruelty of forcing them into this when the original heroes were allowed to decline resurrection. The priest cries, saying she can't possibly endure something so terrible. Hecate's demeanor turns cold as she tells them to simply die. She threatens that if they won't fight, she has no obligation to lend them their new bodies and will rip out their souls to make them disappear completely. Leaning over the crying priest, Hecate tells her that she never had a choice from the very beginning. The priest collapses in despair, realizing she has no choice but to go along with it, which makes him anxious. Hecate then mentions that there will be a reward if they succeed in defeating the demon lord, asking if he is dissatisfied, to which he meekly says he isn't. He starts to say that a corpse-like body is useless, but quickly backtracks, shaking his head and saying he is grateful for another life, no matter the form. Hecate then drops a bombshell. Complete resurrection into a living body is indeed possible. Both he and the priest look at her in stunned disbelief. He explodes with frustration, demanding to know why she didn't do that from the start instead of turning them into zombies if such a thing was possible. Hecate explains that it was because when they recovered the bodies of the original heroes, essential parts were missing. For instance, the warrior had lost his head. She continues, stating that the mage was missing his spine and the priest was missing her guts. And finally, the hero was missing his heart. He demands she tell him everything, but Hecate casually dismisses it as unimportant before admitting that, truthfully, another organ besides the heart had been taken from the hero's body. With a deadpan expression, she bluntly informs him that it's the testicles. A vision of a galaxy-shattering sword fills his mind as he processes this cataclysmic loss. Hecate and the priest watch him, one with detached curiosity and the other with a shriek of surprise. He clutches his groin in agony, screaming that they're gone and that what has been done to him is unbelievably cruel. On his knees, he decries the loss as the ultimate violation of dignity, as important as breasts, while the priest, not understanding the gravity of the situation, tells him to shut up. Hecate calmly adds that it is said the demon lord was the one who took the organs. His face contorts into a mask of pure fury as he declares that he has changed his mind. He will never forgive the demon lord and will now definitely kill him, much to Hecate's satisfaction. His singular motivation becomes a clear flowchart. Kill the demon lord, get his balls back, achieve true resurrection, which means he can finally have sex. He clenches his fists with newfound, sparkly-eyed determination, declaring, "This is it," as the priest questions if someone like him is really fit to be the hero. He vows that he will absolutely return to being a living human because he hates being a zombie. A chime rings out, and Hecate looks at a glowing object in her hand, noting the perfect timing. A massive magic circle erupts with light around them, causing a powerful shockwave. Hecate instructs them to remain calm as she is about to transport them to the forest at the foot of a nearby mountain. She explains their first quest as heroes. Children are being attacked in the forest, and they must protect them and escort them to a nearby village. He frantically asks if she isn't coming with them, but Hecate states she will send her apprentice instead and will meet them at the village later for the details. With a steady gaze, she tells the two new heroes that she is counting on them. She stands before a portal as the magic circle glows, marking the start of their journey. In a flash of light, they are suddenly clad in fantasy-style adventuring gear, utterly confused by the abrupt change. They materialize in a dense forest, disoriented and complaining that their clothes have changed and the tutorial is progressing far too quickly. A terrified scream echoes from nearby, snapping them to attention. They spot a massive, sharp-toothed reptilian creature looming over a small, helpless child. Their faces drain of color, replaced with pure, unadulterated terror. They see another huge, hyena-like beast nearby and realize these are not the kind of monsters one should face at the very start of an adventure. The two massive monsters have them cornered. The child on the ground lets out a small cry of fear. One of the monsters lunges, its maw wide open. The hero leaps in front of the child, bracing for impact and shouting that he won't let the beast pass, realizing how strong it is. He knows this is a losing battle and that they need to escape to the village with the kid immediately. He yells at the priest, telling her they have to prioritize getting the child to safety. Turning to his companion, he finds the priest completely frozen in fear, looking as if she's already dead. The beast's attack smashes into the ground, sending earth and debris flying. The impact throws him backward, tearing off one of his arms, and he grits his teeth, realizing that being a zombie means the grievous injury doesn't hurt that much. The priest lets out a terrified scream as the monsters close in. A dark realization dawns on him. If he gets eaten, he'll be dead for real this time. The world seemed to vanish in a blinding flash of pain and shock. For a moment that stretched into an eternity, there was only a silent, floating sensation in a void. He couldn't see or feel anything, just the echoing memory of the attack. His thoughts were a frantic, silent scream against the sudden emptiness of his senses. The crushing impact he expected never landed. There was only the lingering shock and the terrifying image of the monster's open jaws. Time itself appeared to have stopped, suspended in that single, horrific moment. Slowly, like waking from a nightmare, awareness began to trickle back into his consciousness. He could feel the hard, damp earth beneath his remaining limbs again. The scent of pine needles and wet soil filled his nostrils, grounding him in reality. The faint sound of the child's whimpering finally broke through the ringing in his ears. He forced his eyes open, the chaotic scene of the forest flooding back into view. The priest was still standing nearby, a statue carved from pure terror. The monster towered over them, its saliva dripping near the cowering child. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. There was no clear path to escape. His mind raced, desperately searching for any option, any weapon, any plan. He suddenly remembered Hecate's words about the original hero leaving behind a handover. A fragment of instinct, a flicker of knowledge not his own, surfaced in his mind. It was a technique, a hidden power that now resided within the hero's body. He focused, pushing past the pain and fear, trying to grasp and channel this unfamiliar energy. His remaining hand began to emit a faint, warm glow. The beast paused its advance, its reptilian eyes narrowing as it sensed the shift in power. He knew this was his only chance and that he had to act immediately. With a desperate yell, he thrust his hand forward, pushing all the nascent energy he could muster. A brilliant blast of holy light erupted from his palm, illuminating the dark woods. The concentrated energy struck the monster squarely in its chest. The massive creature let out a deafening roar, not of aggression, but of genuine pain and surprise. It staggered backward a few steps, momentarily stunned and giving them a precious opening. Without a second's hesitation, he scooped up the terrified child with his one good arm. He screamed at the priest, his voice cracking, telling her to run now. The sound of his voice and the sudden change in the fight finally snapped her out of her terrified trance. Together, they scrambled away, crashing recklessly through the dense underbrush. The monster's enraged and pained roars echoed through the forest behind them. Fear propelled them forward. They didn't dare risk a single glance back. Their only thought, their only goal, was to reach the safety of the village Hecate had mentioned. The child was surprisingly heavy in his single arm, slowing his frantic pace. The priest ran beside him, tears still streaming from her eyes but her legs now moving with desperate purpose. They could hear the heavy thud of the beast's footsteps as it crashed through the trees in pursuit. A terrifying certainty grew within him. The monster was faster and it was gaining on them. He feared that this was it, that the end of his second life would come just as pathetically as the first. But the raw, burning indignation of his fate, to die a virgin and without his testicles, refused to let him give up. That single, powerful thought fueled a new, impossible surge of adrenaline and strength. He pushed himself harder, running faster than he thought possible, dragging his companions toward a faint light he could now see between the trees ahead. The hero, Edmund, carries a small child on his back and observes a commotion in the distance, wondering why the village is so noisy. The child he is carrying also expresses concern, wondering aloud if something bad has happened. The priest, Ophelia, sitting nearby, voices her hope that the child they saved earlier made it home safely, prompting Edmund to declare they should go to the village and check. Ophelia agrees it's a good idea, noting that while the child is unlikely to get lost, they could be injured, causing Edmund to apologize to her. He then confesses that he cannot stand up, so Ophelia surprises him by offering to carry him instead. She proceeds to lift him in a princess carry, a position which he finds deeply embarrassing. She asks if there's something wrong with carrying him this way, and he flails in a panic, trying to reassure her it's fine while internally scolding himself for his unnecessary reaction. Despite his embarrassment, he notices the cold, soft feeling where his head rests against her and realizes that she also smells quite nice. The unexpected closeness makes him recall his previous life, lamenting that he died before ever getting to touch his senpai's chest or even share a kiss. The priest leans over him, her eyes filled with tears, and appears to kiss him. The act shocks him to his core as he realizes not only how cute she is but that this was his very first kiss. A closer view shows the moment their lips meet in the quiet forest. His heart begins to pound, a sensation that is new to his undead body, and he pulls away, causing the priest to sadly ask if he hates being touched by her, a notion he frantically denies. Trying to change the subject, he suggests that her calling him hero and using polite speech is too formal and must be tiring. He reintroduces himself by his original name, Ugi Arikawa, and asks for hers, reasoning that if she understands his name, she must also be from Japan. He explains that his current body is named Edmund, and she replies that hers is apparently named Offerriot. He then presses further, asking for her real name, not the name of the body she inhabits. She hesitates, remaining silent for a moment under his questioning. She finally apologizes, stating that she prefers to use polite speech and that calling her priest is fine. He looks down, seeming to understand and accept her reluctance. As she continues to carry him through the woods, he again comments on the noise from the village, and she reminds him that he did just save one of the villagers. He begins to fantasize about a grand welcome, imagining a feast, rewards of money and items, or even an offer to marry the village chief's daughter, but she cuts him off, telling him his stupidity is showing. With a mix of excitement and apprehension, they finally arrive at the outskirts of the village. Suddenly, an arrow zips past his face, lodging itself in a tree and shocking him completely. He spins around to see armed villagers emerging from the woods, realizing they are being attacked. One of the men furiously accuses him of being a demon disguised as the hero who lured his daughter into the forest with the intent to eat her. He looks on, utterly stunned by the sudden turn of events. The villagers advance, shouting for the demon to be killed and not to let it escape. He and the priest are forced to flee as the villagers yell for everyone to bring out protective charms and to keep the shape-shifting demon from entering the village proper. As they retreat into the forest, he tells the priest she can put him down now that he can walk again, still reeling from the unexpected hostility. Once on his feet, he remarks that she must be quite strong, as she ran the entire time while carrying him without even getting out of breath. He wonders if her body is special or has some kind of monstrous strength, like a vampire or zombie, before concluding that neither of them can be considered normal anymore. He reflects on the villagers' accusations, admitting that the urge he felt to eat the child was likely due to his zombie nature, though it was still wrong. He recalls the intense, primal hunger he felt at that moment, a feeling so overwhelming it was as if he had become hunger itself. The memory shows how the feral instinct had completely taken him over in an instant. He sadly concludes that he is more of a monster than a hero, but remembers Hecate's words about an ability left behind by the original hero, one that lets him fight if he removes the stake in his chest. The priest calls him back to their current predicament, noting that Hecate failed to explain things properly and that their attempts to contact her have failed. She reminds him of Hecate's parting words, that she wouldn't be coming but would send her apprentice and meet them at the village later. He stares blankly, admitting he didn't hear that part, which infuriates her as she yells that he was the one who got all motivated but didn't bother to listen. Their argument is cut short by the appearance of a massive, drooling beast emerging from the trees before them. They both scream in absolute terror at the sight of the monster. He yells in frustration, questioning why there is another one when they had already defeated a monster earlier. He connects the villagers' use of protective charms to the appearance of these demons, realizing such creatures might be a normal occurrence in this brutally difficult world. The priest can only stare in open-mouthed horror as the beast lumbers toward them. His hand clenches as he reaches for the stake embedded in his chest. Though he laments how hard this world is, he steels his resolve, knowing he must fight for his purpose. The priest cries out his name, begging him not to remove the stake because he will just turn feral again. He pushes her warning aside, reasoning that he was conscious for the first few seconds last time and that he just has to defeat the monster within that short window. He pulls the stake free, and a wave of raw power erupts from his body. He dashes forward, a blur of motion as he closes the distance to the beast. He moves with incredible speed, easily dodging the monster's snapping jaws. He unleashes a powerful, spinning slash with his sword aimed at the creature's neck. The blow connects, but the beast seems completely unfazed by the attack. Stunned, he wonders why his attack didn't cut through the creature's hide. He looks at his weapon and sees that the blade has been shattered by the impact. Cursing his luck, he cannot believe his sword was damaged in his very first real battle. Roaring in defiance, he decides if his sword won't work, he'll settle things with his bare fists. He throws himself at the monster, engaging it in a wild, brutal brawl. The feral power begins to consume him, his eyes becoming dark, empty pits as he loses control. He clutches his head, managing to regain his senses just in the nick of time. He lands on the ground, breathing heavily, relieved that he somehow managed to pull himself back. The priest urgently warns him that he can't let his guard down yet. An explosion rocks the forest as another monster appears from the dust and debris. He cries out in despair as the new creature catches him in its enormous jaws. The beast's massive tongue lolls out as it prepares to swallow him whole. The priest screams his name, terrified that if he dies, she will be next. A spear of pure wind slams into the side of the monster's head, stopping its attack. A new figure appears, sighing in annoyance at having to use a precious magic stone on such a weakling. This newcomer states that they are only helping because their master ordered them to do so. The figure, a person with fox-like ears, looks down at them and tells them not to misunderstand the rescue. A monstrous creature roars with its mouth agape. Edmund stares forward, his eyes wide with shock as debris rains down around him. Amidst the chaos, a girl with short hair and animal ears looks on with a determined expression. The dust settles, revealing a now quiet and empty forest clearing. Edmund, still on the ground, looks up at the newcomer standing beside the priest and asks who she is. His eyes fixate on the girl's most prominent features, her animal-like ears and a matching tail. A blush creeps across his face as he realizes with a jolt of excitement that this new world is populated with attractive beast girls. The priest shouts a warning for him to watch out as the monster they were fighting reappears, but the beast girl remains calm and collected. She declares coolly that a true hunter never steps into the shadow of their prey. With a swift motion of her hand, she unleashes a skill she calls Severance. The monster freezes in place, its charge halted, as the beast girl suddenly appears behind it, having moved in an instant. To Edmund's immense confusion, the beast turns and retreats into the woods, and the girl explains that her skill will prevent it from perceiving them for a while, keeping them safe. While he doesn't understand how it works, Edmund thinks the skill is cool, and the priest offers a sincere thank you, admitting she thought their journey had ended after only a few hours. He chimes in with his own enthusiastic thanks, saying he was sure they were done for. The beast girl's demeanor shifts instantly to one of fury as she turns on him, demanding to know if he's an idiot. She gets right in his face, questioning his claim of being a veteran adventurer, leaving him to stammer and ask why she is so suddenly angry. She grabs him by the collar and shakes him violently, demanding to know who he really is, while the priest observes that people who get angry so easily are scary. The beast girl finally introduces herself as Garantia, Hecate's apprentice, and asks if they weren't told about her back at the village. Both Edmund and the priest are struck silent by the revelation. After processing the information, Edmund asks if this means she is the one who will be supporting them on their journey instead of Hecate. Garantia cheerfully confirms that he is exactly right, and then demands to see their statuses. She adds that while she knows it can be embarrassing, it's a necessary step for their journey. When they both express confusion, the priest points out that as their support, Garantia should be the one explaining these things, a comment which Garantia finds very irritating. She demonstrates by summoning a glowing, transparent board in front of her. Both Edmund and the priest are amazed, exclaiming that they can see the board-like object as well. Garantia explains that they just have to say, "Status open," for the board to appear, and that adventurers use it to check their skills, power, and any hidden curses or conditions. She glances at her own status board, inadvertently reading aloud an embarrassing passage about her deep admiration for her master, Hecate. Blushing furiously, she quickly dismisses her board as Edmund correctly guesses that the status also displays a person's inner feelings. She tells him to forget what he saw and orders them to hurry up and show her their own statuses. The priest follows the instruction, and a similar board appears before her, which she observes with wonder. Garantia is impressed, noting that the priest has perfectly inherited all of the original Afriette's high-level skills, including holy magic, high healing, and curse removal. She expresses her relief, stating that the priest's abilities will make their journey much less daunting, but Edmund cuts in to say there is something strange about his own status. A look at his status board reveals a dark, corrupted, and blood-drenched screen. Garantia is shocked, wondering why his status looks like that when the priest's was normal, questioning if his undead nature is the cause. Edmund points to a section with unreadable, stylized characters, explaining that it's his name. Brushing that aside, Garantia impatiently asks if he has any useful combat skills. He finds a skill labeled Master Cook, and happily speculates that he received it because he enjoyed cooking for himself in his previous life. Without warning, Garantia punches him hard in the face, sending him reeling. She furiously yells at him, questioning how a cooking skill is supposed to help them defeat the demon lord, but he argues back that you can't fight on an empty stomach. She dismisses his logic, telling him he fails to grasp the responsibilities of a hero while the demon lord's army is on the move, but the priest spots something else on his board that seems readable. She points to a section below the skills, labeled Equipment Slots and Weapons. Under the Currently Equipped section, it lists a single item, Holy Sword. Both Garantia and Edmund are stunned, and he gets excited at finally having something that sounds heroic. He frantically pats himself down, searching for the weapon and wondering if it's a sword that is invisible to idiots, but Garantia calmly tells him not to worry because it is there. She looks at him intently and tells him the sword is right there, pointing toward his chest. In a shocking move, she thrusts her hand directly into his torso. The priest lets out a series of horrified hiccups as she witnesses the brutal act. Edmund stares down in a mixture of pain and disbelief at Garantia's arm buried deep inside his chest. Garantia grimaces at the sensation, complaining that his insides are cold and wet and remarking on how much a zombie can bleed. She tells him to hold still so she can finish quickly, but he can only panic as the pain overwhelms him. He screams in agony as she begins to pull a long object out from within him. The object is revealed to be a dark, wicked-looking blade forged from his own body. He looks down at his wound, amazed to see the blood flowing back into his body instead of out of it. Garantia observes this phenomenon and deduces that the sword must have a special effect that preserves his blood after being drawn. She holds the newly formed weapon, declaring that this is the special equipment of the hero Edmund. She continues to explain the nature of the unique weapon. She reveals that it is a holy sword that has merged with his very flesh and blood, and its name is Chill Blood. Edmund kneels in the snowy aftermath of a battle while the priest tends to his wounds and Garantia stands over them, holding a newly formed blade. He stares at the weapon, a look of shocked disbelief on his face. He breathes the words, recognizing it as the holy sword. The pain from having the sword torn from his body echoes in his bones, and he cries out in agony even as Garantia confirms the wound in his stomach has already healed. Holding the small, dagger-like blade, he complains about its size and sarcastically asks if it's a holy letter opener. He continues to express his doubts, questioning if it's even a real sword and how the legendary hero Edmund could have possibly defeated monsters with it. Garantia interrupts his tirade with a sharp question, asking if it's true they don't possess the memories of the bodies they now inhabit. Edmund confirms this, stating he can read the local language but nothing more, while the priest adds that she has only a faint feeling about her body's past. The priest elaborates that the only memory she has with any clarity is that of a wall of flames. Garantia identifies this phenomenon as the cremation wall, a name given for convenience. She explains that a massive pillar of fire erupted suddenly in the Demon Lord's western territory and expanded north and south, drawing a fiery line across the entire world. This supernatural fire could not be extinguished or even weakened, and worse, it eventually began to move. A vision shows shadowy figures trapped within the inferno, reaching out in despair. A map illustrates the wall of fire slowly advancing eastward from the western coast, incinerating everything in its path. She paints a grim picture, stating that the world is being slowly cremated alive by the Demon Lord. The priest despairs at the thought of a mountain of flames, wondering how anyone could escape it, but Garantia reveals that the nation's greatest mage foretold the birth of a hero who would slay the Demon Lord and save the world from the fire. She looks directly at Edmund, declaring that the prophesied hero was Edmund, and now he has inherited that destiny. He reacts with stunned silence, the full weight of this revelation hitting him as he realizes that if he fails, the entire world will be destroyed. Calling it a heavy burden, he shrinks from the responsibility, but Garantia insists he has no choice. He must defeat the Demon Lord with the Holy Sword, or everyone is doomed. The gravity of their situation finally sinks in for both Edmund and the priest, who look at each other with the shared, dreadful thought that they are completely doomed. Garantia bluntly states that in their current, inexperienced state, she could never lead them to the Demon Lord's territory. She declares that it's her job to prepare them for the journey that lies ahead. She explains that their quest will be meaningless if they can't master their weapons and skills, so her priority is to turn them into capable fighters. With a sly grin, she informs them that there is a dungeon nearby that will serve as the perfect tutorial for their training. The news of a dungeon comes as a complete shock to both of them. They soon arrive at a different part of the forest, near a cave entrance. Garantia announces that their first task is to conquer this dungeon. She notes that the small entrance indicates it's a newly formed dungeon, meaning the monsters inside will be weak enough for new adventurers, making it the perfect training ground. Edmund's mood lifts instantly. He's excited that things are finally feeling like a real Isekai adventure and that this is his chance to master the hero's power, a sentiment that leaves Garantia bewildered. He enthusiastically calls to the priestess to follow him, but she lags behind, nervously asking them not to leave her. Upon entering, they are greeted by the breathtaking sight of a cavern filled with luminous, glowing crystals. The priestess whispers that it's pretty, a sentiment Edmund shares with a warm smile, while Garantia readies herself for the task ahead. Edmund notices her holding a crescent-shaped, glowing tool and asks what it is. She explains it's a device for measuring miasma. She elaborates that miasma is toxic to humans, though adventurers can build a tolerance, and its density is a direct measure of a dungeon's danger. Just as she explains that miasma is like air to magic beasts, her tool flashes, signaling their arrival. A small, round, hamster-like creature waddles out from the shadows, letting out a cute Q sound. The party watches in confusion as the seemingly harmless creature approaches them. Edmund and the priest are utterly captivated, exclaiming in unison how cute the little creature is. Their adoration turns to horror as the creature's body splits open, revealing a grotesque inner maw filled with teeth and writhing tentacles. After its terrifying display, the creature reverts to its cute form and spits out a small, round object. It then abruptly explodes, leaving nothing behind but a shower of gore. Garantia calmly explains that while even villagers can handle these beasts, they are still powerful and known to kill and eat lost children. As another one appears, she calls it perfect timing and tells Edmund to try and defeat the weak monster himself. Cursing under his breath, Edmund takes a stance with his holy sword, preparing to fight the creature. He lunges forward with a battle cry, bringing his sword down on the small beast. He manages to land a cut, noting how difficult the holy sword is to use, just as Garantia shouts at him to dodge. The creature puffs up like a ball and launches itself at him with surprising speed. The impact makes a nasty sound as the small beast's charge is powerful enough to break his leg. Garantia turns to the priestess, urgently telling her to heal him quickly. The priestess raises her hands, and a holy light begins to emanate from them as she casts a spell. Instead of relief, Edmund is struck by an intense, searing pain from the healing magic. Garantia watches in shock, realizing the healing isn't working and is actually causing more damage, while the priestess panics, wondering what she has done wrong. Edmund writhes on the ground, screaming that his leg feels like it's on fire and that the pain is unbearable. The monster takes advantage of his agony, lunging forward and clamping its grotesque inner mouth over his entire upper body. The priestess watches in horror, only able to offer a quiet apology. The narrative bluntly states that the hero has died once again. The scene shifts to a plain wooden ceiling. Edmund's eyes snap open as he finds himself lying safely in a bed. He looks out the window at a rustic-looking house in a field, wondering where he is. He struggles to recall the whirlwind of recent events, being stabbed, reincarnated as a zombie, teleported, and meeting a beautiful girl. The final memory clicks into place as he remembers being eaten by the monster in the dungeon. He sits up with a jolt, checking his body to find it intact. He turns his head and sees the priestess sleeping peacefully in the bed beside him. He instinctively checks himself under the covers, relieved that nothing has changed, just as a voice from the door announces they're coming in. An elderly man enters the room, greeting him as brother, and noting that he's finally awake. Edmund demands to know who he is, and the man identifies himself as the owner of the house before asking about the two girls sleeping in the other bed. The man explains that 3 days prior, Garantia and the priestess arrived at his home carrying the corpse of a magic beast, saying their friend was in trouble and needed his help. A flashback shows the man inspecting the strange scene the girls presented. He tells Edmund that while he doesn't understand magic, it was clear the two were desperate to save him and that he should be grateful. He also mentions that he took the liberty of washing his clothes. The scene ends on a shot of the quiet, rustic house. Later, Edmund sits in bed with a bowl of food, noting that he doesn't feel hungry at all, a condition he attributes to being a zombie. He takes a bite of the food and his eyes widen in horror as he realizes it is completely tasteless. He drops the half-eaten fruit, resigning himself to the fact that this must be yet another consequence of his undead state. The priest stands with her back to the viewer, her long hair obscuring her as she looks out a window. In a fit of rage, Garantia is shown throwing a punch with a fierce, animalistic snarl. She berates Edmund, yelling at him for losing to such a pathetically weak monster in the dungeon. A sheepish Edmund apologizes and asks her to explain what happened after he was eaten, and she tearfully explains that she had to use up her precious magic stones to resurrect him. She recounts how after she killed the monster, she and the priest had to drag its corpse all the way back to the inn they are staying at. With a look of disgust, she reveals the gruesome details, explaining that she had to perform a ritual to extract his essence from the beast's stomach acid. He asks why she couldn't have just used healing magic, but she clarifies that for some unknown reason, her healing spells do not work on him. She describes the ritual, which involved chanting an incantation in the name of Igetsu to seek a miracle beyond her own power. The chant continued, a plea to borrow a power greater than her own to accomplish the task. The resurrection required a massive amount of magical energy, forcing her to use not only a powerful, high restore scroll from her master, Hecate, but also every last magic stone she possessed. She concludes her explanation with the grim announcement that because she has no resources left, she is unable to fight with them any longer. The news shocks Edmund, who demands to know why. She reminds him of the wind spear attack she used earlier, explaining that it consumes magic stones to work, and she now has none left for battle. Her frustration boils over into anger as she blames him entirely, screaming that it's his fault for getting eaten and digested that she had to waste all of her important magic stones. The terrifying implication dawns on Edmund. In their next battle, there will be no backup and, more importantly, no more resurrections. The finality of their situation feels like a game over screen in his mind. Garantia clarifies that both she and the priest have support-type skills, which means in the fight against the demon lord he is the one who will have to be on the front lines. She adds that she can still use her basic battle skills to defeat weaker enemies like wolves, and they can always flee from monsters that are too strong. However, she warns with a cold, serious expression, one cannot run away from true murderous intent. Lying in her bed, the priest adds that this kind of intent is something a mere monster cannot possess. The scene flashes to a terrifyingly wide, inhuman grin with oversized teeth. The priest's eye widens in terror as she is gripped by a memory or vision. She cries out a single word, "No." Edmund, concerned, asks the priestess if she is feeling unwell, but she denies it twice. A dark, smiling visage fills her mind as the overwhelming thought to run away consumes her. She lies paralyzed by fear, knowing she needs to escape from this place but feeling that it's utterly useless. Edmund calls out her name, Offriette, as her mind races in panic, thinking about an old man and desperately searching for a way to hide or get away. Her terror intensifies as she feels a menacing presence watching them, sensing that something is coming. Her eye, filled with dread, darts toward the window. A loud bang suddenly erupts from the window, shattering the glass. All three of them are startled, turning their heads toward the source of the noise. They see the broken window as a persistent knocking sound begins to echo through the room. A rapid succession of distorted, menacing eyes and faces flashes before them, an unseen terror now at their door. Numerous grotesque faces with wide, staring eyes press against the panes of the inn's window, peering inside. The priest turns away from the window with a start, her back now to the horrifying visages as she demands to know who is there. The faces continue their silent, unblinking stare from beyond the glass. One of the faces distorts unnaturally, pressing against the pane until it bubbles inward like a black balloon. Garantia and Edmund can only stare in horror, with Garantia questioning if the strange shape is a balloon. The black, balloon-like objects detach from the window, revealing they are not balloons at all, but something far more sinister. Edmund realizes with a sickening certainty that they are disembodied human heads, somehow inflated and turned into floating objects. One of the grotesque head balloons drifts toward him, its warped features weakly pleading for help. Suddenly, the head begins to creak and swell, its form rapidly distorting. It expands in an instant and then explodes with tremendous force. The blast rips through the side of the inn, throwing everyone off their feet. Edmund, the priest, Garantia, and the old innkeeper are blown clear of the building just as the explosion consumes it. The priest marvels that they all managed to get out in that single instant, while Edmund thinks to himself that they escaped just in time. The group lands in a heap on the ground, a safe distance from the now destroyed inn. The old innkeeper stumbles to his feet, frantically asking where they are and what has become of his home. Edmund and Garantia look back at the smoldering wreckage, wondering what that head thing was and how it could have exploded. Edmund turns to Garantia, asking if she knows anything, and she replies grimly that she's heard of a similar case, though it did not occur in a village. She recounts a story about the entire staff of the Adventurers Guild in the far west being turned into those same horrific head balloons. The horrifying implication dawns on Edmund. The entire village they were just driven from has likely suffered the same fate. The old man recognizes the faces of his neighbors among the floating heads, Isaac, the couple from the flower shop, even the town drunk Roy, and despairs, just as another cry for help cuts through the air. A small girl is seen crying for her mother amidst the devastation. Edmund is shocked to see a survivor, as the girl continues to scream for help. The priest moves to assist the child, but Garantia quickly holds her back, sensing danger. A monstrous, insect-like arm descends from the shadows and brutally impales the small girl. The girl's eyes turn into black voids as she looks up at the creature, sadly asking why it won't let her give it a hug. The creature's massive, dark hand closes over the girl's face. It crushes her head in a single, violent motion. The girl's body goes limp as her life is snuffed out. A shadowy figure emerges from the darkness as the party looks on in stunned silence. The dark form is suddenly struck by an unseen force. The cute outfit the girl was wearing is now torn and bloodied, revealing a dreadful, clown-like monster underneath. The priest's eyes widen with dawning horror. She recognizes the creature as a general from the demon lord's army known as Comforter, the court jester. An overwhelming, instinctual fear grips both Edmund and the priest, their bodies screaming at them to flee immediately. The jester, Comforter, looms over them, and Edmund knows with chilling certainty that if he so much as blinks, he will be killed. As the head balloons float ominously in the background, the Comforter seems to savor their terror, and Edmund realizes he is the only one not frozen in fear. In a flash, the Comforter appears directly in front of the paralyzed priest, commenting on what a cute young lady she is. The instantaneous movement shocks Edmund, who didn't even see the creature move. The Comforter reaches out and gently lifts the priest's chin, forcing her to meet its gaze. Garantia screams at the monster, ordering it to let the priest go. The Comforter turns its smiling, painted face toward Garantia, its expression unchanging. It calmly tells Garantia that it wishes to play with the cute young lady, not with her. With a powerful backhand strike, the Comforter sends Garantia flying through the air. Edmund grits his teeth in rage as he watches his companion get swatted away. The Comforter points a finger at Edmund and unleashes a beam of dark energy. The blast hits Edmund's face, and his eye explodes in a gruesome shower of blood and tissue. The Comforter smiles condescendingly at the injured hero and tells him to be gone. A brilliant explosion of white light fills the area. The comforter holds the priest in its grasp, a wide grin on its painted face. In the aftermath of the blast, only rubble remains of the inn. Edmund lies on the ground, his body covered in blood, having been thrown a great distance by the comforter's attack. The priest struggles against the jester's grip, her muffled cries unheard. The comforter turns its attention back to her, apologizing for the interruption and asking where they were. A holy light suddenly emanates from the priest's body, and the comforter questions if it's a skill. The light strikes the comforter, causing it to recoil and cry out in pain. Freed from its grasp, the priest rushes towards Garantia, recalling how they revived Edmund after he was digested and hoping the same can be done for her friend. She reaches Garantia's mangled body and realizes with horror that unlike her and Edmund, Garantia has a living body that may not survive such grievous wounds. She covers her face with her hands, overcome with despair. A surge of determination cuts through her fear. She knows that if she doesn't act now, Garantia will surely die. She resolves to use one of Afriette's skills right here and now. Clasping her hands together, she begins to pray earnestly for a grand healing, for a flowing rain of golden flowers. As she kneels over Garantia's still form, a holy light envelopes them, and glowing crosses fill the air. The divine light intensifies, forming a blanket of healing energy over her friend. She desperately calls out Garantia's name as the skill takes effect. Leaning close, she pleads for her to wake up. The comforter watches from a distance, mockingly calling the priest a pretty flower and telling her she can't die just yet. It comments on her pure scent, saying it's so delightful it makes its nose curl. The comforter moves with incredible speed, closing the distance in an instant. Before the priest can react, she is bound by strange, humming clown dolls that spring from the ground. The comforter reveals it has heard tales of the hero's party and has long wanted to meet the beautiful priestess with the long hair. It adds that it was truly sad to hear of her death. As the dolls tighten their grip, it thanks her for returning to the world of the living. With a sadistic glee, it confesses that it wants to make her burst. It muses aloud about all the terrible things it wants to do to her: cut her into a puzzle, wear her skin home, or inflate her until she pops like a balloon. One of the clown dolls is suddenly destroyed, apologizing as it dissipates. Edmund, his face a mask of pure rage, delivers a powerful punch to the comforter's face. The comforter looks down at him, its smile gone, and calls him utterly annoying. With a single, dismissive strike, it sends Edmund flying, telling him to hurry up and disappear from its sight. The comforter turns back to the priest, explaining that the floating head balloons are a celebration meant just for her. The grotesque heads of the villagers float silently, their distorted voices whispering pleas for help and release from their torment. Lying on the ground, Edmund thinks about how he and his original party were just normal people living normal lives, and now he has died yet again. He reflects on the terror of death, and how this monstrous creature twists that fear into something its victims wish for. The silent screams of the tormented souls echo in his mind, their agony branding the comforter's actions as terrible, awful, and unforgivable. He slowly gets to his feet, his eyes vacant, as if he has forgotten what he was just doing. A large meat cleaver appears in his hand. Ghostly chains begin to materialize around him, clinking in the silence. He is surrounded by the spectral forms of chained, suffering figures. His eyes clear, now filled with a cold and resolute purpose. He stands amidst the crowd of tormented spirits, their collective pain flowing into him. A black, viscous liquid drips from the spectral forms. One of the comforter's dolls places a severed, monstrous head next to the priest. The grotesque, horned head of a beast is held up before her. Its black blood is smeared across her face by a large, clawed hand. The dark liquid drips down her cheek, a stark contrast to her pale skin. Edmund's face contorts in agony as the black substance seems to be absorbed into his own body. His features twist and warp, his mouth stretching into a horrifying, inhuman grin as one of his eyes becomes a black void. His body begins to fall apart, pieces of flesh and bone sloughing off and dropping to the ground. He collapses into a heap of dissolving matter. The priest watches in stunned silence, wondering if he is somehow eating the balloon people. His face, now a nightmarish fusion of his own features and the black substance, is a mask of pure horror. The comforter looks down at the dissolving hero with contempt, calling him a persistent little rat. The priest watches in disbelief as the hero's shattered and dissolving head begins to miraculously restore itself. Annoyed by his persistence, the comforter declares that this time, it will gladly crush him for good. The monstrous jester lunges forward with incredible speed, aiming to finish the fight. But Edmund moves even faster, appearing behind the Comforter in a blur of motion. The Comforter is shocked by his sudden and impossible speed. Edmund delivers a single, powerful blow that sends the Comforter flying across the barren landscape. The priest watches in stunned amazement, realizing he sent the clown flying with just one hit. Her amazement turns to terror as she remembers that the hero is now in a feral state, and she and the injured Garantia are now in his path. Her fear is immediately justified as the feral hero grabs her arm and bites down hard. His sharpened teeth sink deep into her flesh as she cries out in pain. She stares into his single, black, empty eye socket, questioning if this is truly the hero or something else entirely. She calls out his original name, Ugi, desperately asking if he is still conscious within the monstrous form. His face remains a mask of feral rage, offering no sign of recognition as he continues his assault. He raises his free, clawed hand, preparing to strike her down. The priest screams, bracing for the final blow. From a distance, the Comforter gets to its feet and unleashes a barrage of sharp, spinning blades. It vows to crush the worm as the deadly projectiles rain down upon the rampaging hero. Edmund catches the blades with his bare hand, effortlessly crushing them into dust. He lets out a defiant roar, his face a portrait of pure, unrestrained fury. The Comforter is taken aback, questioning what is happening and how he could be so powerful. It recalls hearing that the hero had been revived as an undead, but acknowledges that there is something very strange about this one. The Comforter muses that while all undead, from zombies to ghouls and even vampires, share an unnatural vitality, they have a common weakness. It notes with growing unease that any other undead would be permanently destroyed if their head was obliterated, just as it had done to the hero. It watches in disbelief as Edmund's body seems to be stitching its own head back together with dark tendrils. A flicker of doubt crosses the Comforter's mind as it questions whether it can even defeat this strange undead hero. Resolving that its plans to relax have been ruined, it decides it must finally get serious. As black, viscous liquid drips from its face, the Comforter vows to remove Edmund from this world and cloud his face in utter despair. The Jester's form shifts as it prepares to unleash its true power. A small, ghostly pig appears on the battlefield, letting out a series of oinks and squeeze. Edmund, in his feral state, looks down at the pig and mutters that he cannot eat this one yet. A host of headless, spectral figures armed with cleavers and scrolls materializes behind him. The spirits declare that the meat is not yet ready and must first be properly butchered. Dark energy coalesces in Edmund's hand as he prepares his weapon. The holy sword, Chill Blood, forms in his grasp, now dripping with a sinister black substance. The Comforter observes the weapon, noticing that its very shape seems to be changing. The sword's name, Chill Blood, is displayed as it transforms into a larger, more menacing blade. A distorted voice emanates from Edmund, asking if it is now time for the villain to leave the stage, because it is time to eat. The priest coughs weakly as the holy lights of her healing spell fade around her. She holds the revived but still unconscious Garantia in her arms. The monstrously transformed Sir Hero faces off against the Demon Lord's general, the Comforter. His face is a mask of feral rage, one eye a black void, as he brandishes his ominous, transformed sword. With a burst of speed, the two combatants clash in a shower of sparks and dark energy. The hero's blade grinds against the Comforter's arm, letting out a loud, metallic shriek. The Comforter is shocked that the blade can cut his steel-like skin, realizing with dawning horror that this is an entirely different person than the one he fought before. He is pushed back by the hero's immense strength, unable to believe he is being overpowered by this brat. Enraged by this turn of events, the Comforter warns the hero not to get cocky. The Jester is sent flying backwards, unable to withstand the hero's relentless and brutal assault. Regaining its footing, the Comforter is visibly shaken by the hero's overwhelming power. It unleashes a special attack, sending a swarm of spinning saw blades hurtling through the air. The deadly projectiles spin rapidly as they close in on their target. The hero stands his ground, unfazed by the incoming barrage. He prepares to counter the attack, his transformed sword held at the ready. The Comforter taunts him, asking if his regeneration will still work after he's been turned into ground meat, as the hero begins to deflect the blades. He moves with blinding speed, his sword a blur as he parries each saw blade with perfect precision. The blades ricochet wildly in all directions, unable to penetrate his defense. The Comforter declares that deflecting them is useless, boasting that his hard-working rats will never stop their assault. The hero finds the unending swarm of small, annoying projectiles to be tedious. His hand twitches as if preparing for a new kind of attack. His holy sword, Chill Blood, begins to change, its form becoming more grotesque and organic as it pulses with dark energy. The transformed blade sends out a shockwave of power. The Comforter is stunned as its saw-blade rats are instantly destroyed by the pulse. The hero follows up with a powerful swing of his pulsating sword. The Comforter can only watch as the strange new blade comes toward him. The sword's first transformation is identified: Boning Knife. The hero's attack carves a deep trench in the ground, narrowly missing the Comforter. The Comforter realizes with alarm that its arms have been severed and it needs to restore them quickly. But it is far too slow. The hero is already upon it once more. With another swift strike, the hero's blade cleanly slices off the Comforter's regenerating arms. The Comforter is shocked by the incredible speed and precision of the attack. The hero relentlessly pursues his disarmed opponent, giving him no time to recover. The holy sword changes form again, its blade widening into a cruel, curved, skinning knife. He unleashes a vicious flurry of slashes, peeling away the Comforter's steel-like skin in gruesome strips. The Comforter finally understands. The being before him is no longer a different person, but a true monster. It wonders in terror what kind of nightmarish creature the humans managed to resurrect. The holy sword transforms a final time, its blade growing to an immense size to become a meat cleaver. The hero brings the massive cleaver down with unstoppable force. The impact shatters the ground, sending debris flying in all directions. The Comforter's severed head lies on the ground, its painted face twisted in a silent groan. The monstrous hero stands triumphantly over the remains of the defeated general. He reaches down with his clawed hand, his expression one of savage hunger. In a distant, opulent chamber, the true Comforter screams in frustration, declaring that this is no fun at all. One of its dolls asks what is wrong, reminding him that he was supposed to be playing with the priestess, who was his type. The Comforter reveals that its clone, the one it sent to capture her, has just been eaten. The doll points out that the clone was weaker anyway and that its master was simply careless, but the Comforter laments that he was supposed to get a new costume from the encounter. The true Comforter seethes with rage, vowing to cut that damned hero into 1,000 pieces and cast him into the cremation wall. A woman with long dark hair and elf-like ears is approached by a short-haired girl in a military-style uniform holding a glass of wine. A length of chain is shown against a dark, shifting background, accompanied by a metallic clinking sound. Edmund wakes with a start, his eyes wide with confusion and disorientation. He finds himself chewing on something unfamiliar. He looks around a dark space, wondering where he is. A close-up reveals him biting into a piece of meat. A female voice interrupts his thoughts, demanding to know if he is listening to her. The voice notes that he is ignoring her as he continues to munch on his food. She observes with a smirk that he is quite a big eater. The girl grabs him by the collar, pulling him close and demanding to know what he is eating. She yanks him forward, forcing him to look down. He is confronted with the horrifying sight of a mangled, bloody head on a plate before him. The girl speaks his original name, calling him Arikawa Ugi. His eyes widen in absolute terror at the revelation. The scene shifts, and he realizes it was all just a dream. He lies in the dark, thinking that although it was a total nightmare, it felt terrifyingly real. He tries to speak but finds his voice is muffled and his mouth is covered. He discovers to his horror that he is bound tightly in a straitjacket and gagged. As the floor beneath him rattles and shakes, he panics, realizing he's being transported in a wagon and must have been kidnapped. His memory flashes back to the gruesome, transformed face of the clown general he fought. His first coherent thought is to wonder if everyone else managed to get away safely. Looking around the wagon, he sees the one-eyed girl, Garantia, and the old man from the inn lying in the back. The man, who is patting Garantia's head, reassures him that he is alive because they brought him here. The man removes his gag, explaining that his companion is the type who can't relax without putting her all into things. The wagon continues to rattle along a rough path. The man apologizes for the bumpy ride, explaining that they are currently passing through Monkey Beast territory. Edmund questions what he means by passing through. The man introduces himself as Antonio, the captain of the Transport Guild Shylock, who is in charge of the carriage. Edmund, remembering his new identity, quickly adopts the persona of the hero Edmund, inwardly panicking that he almost forgot his cover story. Antonio explains that his guild was passing through the village when they found Edmund's party collapsed amongst the ruins. He somberly adds that besides an elderly man, there were no other survivors, the entire village was wiped out, and the area is now in chaos. Edmund thinks about the clown general, finding it hard to believe that such a powerful creature would have simply let them escape. He struggles to remember the details of the fight, wondering if his memory loss is a side effect of having his head blown off. Antonio mentions that he was waiting for him to wake up to discuss something important. He explains that while he was restraining the unconscious Edmund, he noticed that his legendary sacred sword was missing. The priest awakens, disoriented, and immediately starts questioning why he is tied up and where the pervert is touching her, while also sadly remembering the friends she lost in the village. Antonio explains the reason for the restraints. Given the circumstances of the attack, there's a possibility that a monster disguised itself as the hero after the real one fell. He says that while he personally believes Edmund is innocent, for his own peace of mind, he needs him to prove it by showing his status. He tells Edmund to stop whining and get on with it. A new woman with short white hair and 2 swords enters the back of the wagon, and Antonio greets her as Tosca. Tosca asks if the situation is resolved, stating she can handle small fry on her own and has more important matters to attend to. She approaches Edmund, calling him a monster bastard and remarking on his ice-cold skin. She accuses him of being a monster who peeled the skin off the real hero and stitched it onto himself. Her eyes narrow as she declares that the status board is the only absolute truth, threatening to kill him on the spot if he doesn't show it to them right now. Under immense pressure, the bound Edmund shouts the command to open his status. Tosca stares at the status board that appears before him, her eyes widening in shock at what it reveals. After a moment of silence, she grimly states that it's decided. She declares that based on what she has seen, he is undoubtedly a monster. She reasons that since he is the hero, he can be brought back to life even if he dies, unlike them, so there is no problem with killing him here and now. With a cold, merciless expression, she tells him to be silent and die. He screams in terror as she raises a sharp blade above him. She brings the knife down with the full intent to kill. Her eyes are filled with murderous resolve as she swings the blade. The screen focuses on Edmund's terrified, screaming face as the weapon descends. As a knife is gripped tightly, a terrified eye stares in shock. The blade strains downwards with force, only to be stopped by what is revealed to be cloth. The wielder, Tosca, looks down with annoyance at the hero, asking if he is finally awake. Garantia leaps to the hero's defense, calling Tosca a witch and questioning how they will kill the demon lord if she kills the prophesied hero. From his bonds, the hero calls out Garantia's name, but she retorts that he should worry about his own situation, complaining that he is tied up while she can't move freely. She continues to argue that assaulting the hero is an act of rebellion against the nation, as he has been given the official mission to slay the demon lord. Antonio steps in, calmly telling Tosca to refrain from being rough, reminding her that she works for the state and they already have testimony. Tosca holds up the piece of cloth she used to block the knife, explaining it is a high-end magic item from the government, valuable as an entire town and useful for both offense and defense. She then calls it a laughable waste of money and insults Garantia by calling her part of an inferior race. Tosca continues her insults, questioning the sanity of the mage who would entrust such an item to Garantia. An image of an elf-like mage appears as someone explains that this mage's prophecies have saved thousands, questioning Tosca's disbelief. Undeterred, Tosca grabs Garantia by the head while Garantia shouts that continuing this will make her guilty of treason. Leaning close, Tosca asks Garantia if she is one of the few survivors from Iritai. Garantia stares back, confused by the question. As a brief flashback shows Tosca holding a younger Garantia, the Beast Girl's face fills with dawning dread. Tosca states that even the renowned mage cannot heal the scar on Garantia's face because a ceremonial blade caused it. That scar, she proclaims, is proof that Garantia is a murderer. The bound hero demands to know what Tosca is talking about, and she offers to enlighten him. Tosca holds a small, carved block, declaring that all beastmen are cunning and filthy creatures. She claims they will betray anyone without a second thought if it means saving their own skin. They will even betray their own flesh and blood. Garantia denies the accusations, but Tosca embraces her, saying the fact that Garantia is alive and here is all the proof needed. Leaning in, Tosca whispers the accusation directly into her ear, "Parent killer." Edmund demands to know what she is talking about, as Antonio looks on in disbelief, wondering if Garantia could truly be a murderer. Garantia's face crumbles as she begins to cry. Tosca glares coldly, asking how she dares to start crying, while Edmund watches in horror. A single teardrop falls against a black background. Tosca complains that Garantia is dirtying her floor with tears. The sound of ripping thread echoes through the wagon. The hero's monstrous clawed hand suddenly grabs Tosca's arm, stopping her advance as she remarks that he was too slow. Now free of his straitjacket, the hero grips Tosca's wrist, demanding she apologize to Garantia while she struggles to get him to let go. With a face twisted in feral rage, the hero growls that everything she said was a lie and demands an apology. Tosca strains against his grip, shocked by the sudden shift in his presence and her inability to break free. Antonio rushes over to intervene, apologizing profusely for his subordinate's rudeness and ordering Tosca to apologize as well. The hero explains his fury, stating that he cannot stand by and watch her bully a sweet girl who has only tried her best to help him. Garantia gently touches the hero's back, telling him it's okay and asking him to let Tosca go. He turns in surprise as Garantia quietly thanks him. The tense atmosphere shatters as Garantia sniffles, getting snot on the hero's back, much to his annoyance, while Antonio comments that he should have escaped his restraints faster if he could. Antonio muses that the hero is an outrageous person for being able to break free from special restraints designed to seal both magic and skills for dangerous criminals. The wagon's driver slides open the door, shouting at them for being so noisy inside. The driver complains that he had to deal with the apes, all by himself, while the now calm hero asks where they are going. As the carriage rattles on, the driver tells Antonio to get the entry permit ready because they are about to arrive. Horses pull the carriage towards their destination. A walled city comes into view, which is identified as Ellis, an intermediary city for adventurers. The view showcases the formidable stone walls and the main gate of the city of Ellis. The large, heavy gates begin to open for the carriage. Stepping out onto the cobblestone streets, the hero expresses his amazement at the sight. He marvels at the fortress city, excitedly realizing that he is truly in another world. Antonio overhears this and questions his comment, but the hero quickly retracts it, saying it was nothing. A map of Ellis is shown, reinforcing its role as an intermediary city for adventurers. The city is further explained to be a hub providing adventurers with all necessary equipment, supplies, lodging, and rest areas. Tosca informs Antonio that she will handle the paperwork regarding the village and see to the old man's care at the guild hall. Just then, the old man from the inn pulls Antonio aside, insisting he come with him to the Spirit's Peak to discuss a private matter before departing hastily. The hero, the priest, and Garantia are left standing awkwardly in the street, wondering what they should do now that they have been left behind. The priest begins to make a suggestion for their first course of action. A woman with horns and elf-like ears stands in a dark forest beside a large stone owl. Inside a building, the hero collapses onto a bed, relieved that it is finally time to rest. The priest questions his desire to sleep immediately upon arriving in their room, while Garantia also settles down on the floor to rest. A voice announces itself as Hecate and expresses relief that they are all safe, prompting an excited Garantia to recognize her master and pounce on the startled hero. Garantia asks her master if it is okay for her to be awake during the day, which Hecate confirms is no problem, as the priest questions if Hecate has been watching them the entire time. Hecate explains that while she knew their location, communication was unstable, and she asks if they were in combat, noting her surprise that they encountered the jester. The hero is shocked that the jester could appear on their side of the wall, and Hecate explains that powerful monsters normally cannot leave the demon lord's domain due to the thin miasma in human lands. The priest asks for the connection between the jester's appearance and the miasma. Hecate compares a monster crossing into thin miasma to a human holding their breath underwater, and then asks about the current progress of the cremation wall. A map is shown as Hecate explains that the demon lord's territory has swallowed the nation of Arikia, consuming a quarter of the entire continent. The priest is horrified by the news, asking what became of the people from Arikia. An image displays the cremation wall, a vast, consuming wave of destructive energy spreading across the land. Hecate elaborates that many died attempting to stop the wall, and that the poisonous miasma surrounding it drives nearby beasts into a ferocious madness. As the cremation wall spreads, dungeons grow more active and beasts more dangerous, meaning only the highly skilled can handle the increasing perils near the wall, which is why it must be stopped. Hecate then asks the hero if he has noticed anything unusual about his body, and he lists his lack of taste, pain, and essential male anatomy, which she confirms is standard for his condition. The hero becomes depressed over his state, and the priest notes that she also lacks most of her senses. He then recalls using his power earlier without needing to touch the stake, leading Hecate to conclude that his soul and body are beginning to attune to one another. She explains that though many historical studies exist on transferring a soul into a new body, every practical attempt has resulted in failure. These attempts were unsuccessful even when the vessel was a pure, undeveloped fetus. After the hero questions the ethics of such an experiment, Hecate reveals that she revived him by reinforcing his body with her black threads. She clarifies that she stitched his entire body together with ultra-fine, magic-imbued threads, woven finer than capillaries through every inch of him to hold him together. The priest remembers the moment the hero's head was destroyed. Hecate issues a stern warning to the hero to avoid fire and strong acids, as her threads cannot hold him together if he is reduced to ash. She then addresses the priest by name, Offriette, and informs her that she and the hero are different types of undead, much to Offriette's shock. Hecate states that an undead using holy magic should be impossible, like setting fire to ice, but that there is no real precedent for raising the dead. Given that the holy attribute is used to slay the undead, Hecate tells Offriette it is a miracle she hasn't burned from within, concluding she must be truly loved by the gods. The hero grows jealous at this, wondering if being loved by the gods also grants Offriette a sense of taste. Hecate reiterates that there is no successful precedent for what they've accomplished, confirming the hero's suspicion that they are like experiments, and tells them to report any strange developments immediately. Garantia theorizes that the hero's near-immortal body might be the reason the adventurers were jealous of him. The hero bluntly states he has no interest in his form of immortality, lamenting that it means he will be a virgin zombie forever. He complains that he is at a critical age, while both Garantia and Offriette look on in confusion. He bemoans being killed right before he could lose his virginity, prompting Offriette to call him disgusting and threaten to castrate him if his body ever recovers. Determined, the hero declares he will find happiness in his second life, as Garantia asks what a virgin is and the priest tells him he has said enough. Hecate calls his name, drawing his attention back to the serious conversation. The hero cheerfully suggests that after they defeat the demon lord, they should have a grand banquet with many delicious foods. Hecate simply agrees to his request. She promises that if he can come back alive, he can have it all, which sends him into a joyous fantasy of pools of wine and forests of meat as Offriette calls him an idiot. Getting back to business, Hecate states that the three of them alone are not enough to defeat the demon lord and must meet up with an ally. She instructs them to find the warrior Othello, the hero's prophesied ally, who can be found at Mount Mura. The chapter ends on a close-up of two hands firmly clasping one another. An old man sits at a desk in the guild, wondering if Captain Antonio is still around. A pile of coins is dumped on the table as a voice proposes a negotiation. Garantia looks up intently, asking if her request can be accepted. In a quiet moment, Garantia combs the priest's long hair. While walking through the city streets, a vendor calls out to the hero and his companions. The shopkeeper presents a magic stone engraved with restoration magic, claiming the disposable item can reattach a severed arm. After the priest gives him money to explore, the hero pats his pockets, checking if he can afford the stone the vendor is hawking. A look of sheer panic crosses the hero's face as he realizes his wallet has been stolen. While his party is dismayed over the lost wallet, the priest offers the shopkeeper a small pouch of coins, asking if it will be enough for their purchase. A young woman unexpectedly pays for them, handing over the money as the shocked hero asks who she is. The priest recognizes the woman, realizing she was in the carriage with their transport team. The woman expresses her frustration that the hero doesn't remember her name, which he struggles to recall. She smiles and reintroduces herself as Portia, hoping he and the priest will remember this time. Portia then suggests to the confused hero that they should try to get along better from now on. Two new figures appear, calling out to Portia and asking where she is going. They are introduced as Transport Guild Shylock members Neri and Gracia, who are surprised to see the hero and the cleric. Gracia explains he was in a separate carriage transporting the cleric, who is now looking pale and unwell. The priest apologizes, explaining that she suffers from motion sickness. Feeling nauseous from the crowds, the priest declares she is returning to the inn, and Neri offers to escort the stumbling cleric back. Gracia tells Portia that she needs to finish their shopping. Neri asks the hero to keep Portia company, an opportunity Portia eagerly accepts. An awkward silence falls between the hero and Portia until she tells him there's no need to be so formal, as they're the same age. Deciding to call him Ed, Portia asks if he would like to look around the market with her. Ed is flustered by the invitation, questioning why she wants to spend time with him when they just met. She explains she simply wanted a chance to talk to him, and a blushing Ed accepts her offer. A montage shows Ed and Portia happily exploring the market stalls together. Ed notes the large amount of goods Portia is carrying and asks if she is alright, but she assures him she's fine. When she lets him hold the large sack, he is stunned by how light it is, feeling as though it has no weight at all. He stares in disbelief, easily holding the massive bundle. Portia reveals her specialty is weight manipulation magic, which is perfect for her job as a transporter. Upon inspecting the contents, Ed sees the bag is filled with sweets and asks if they are all for her, but she clarifies they are not. She explains the sweets are for the children in the mountain village that is their next destination, wanting to give them a wide variety so they don't get bored. Overcome with emotion at her kindness, Ed tearfully calls her a good person and asks if she is an angel. Portia worries the children might find her gesture meddlesome, but Ed fervently reassures her, declaring that she is a saint. He continues to praise her for helping him when his wallet was stolen and for showing him around the market for the first time. After he thanks her sincerely, a blushing Portia insists that she should be the one thanking him. Portia then reveals that Ed saved her life once before. She recounts how, about half a year ago in the West, her entire unit was annihilated by a monstrous beast. In that moment, she was certain she was going to die. Just then, the hero happened to be passing by and intervened in the fight. A memory flashes of the original hero's determined eyes in the heat of battle. Ed apologizes for not remembering the event, and Portia admits she expected as much, but she asserts that it is a fact he saved her from certain death. She tells him it doesn't matter if he recalls it or not, as she simply wanted to finally thank him for saving her life. As Portia begins to offer a token of her feelings, she is suddenly interrupted by a shout. Gracia appears, struggling under a comically large pile of cargo and begging for help before his arms rip off. Portia scolds Gracia for his habit of overpurchasing as Ed offers to lend a hand. While they help, Gracia asks Ed a serious question, wondering if the original hero was okay with giving him his life. Gracia tells the new hero that he is the one who saved Portia's life, and the smile she gave earlier was meant for him. The group is seen walking away from the city walls as the sun begins to set. In a voiceover, Gracia reflects on what an amazing person the original hero was and questions why he refused to be resurrected. The final image shows a silhouette of the hero Edmund, sitting alone in a chair in the darkness. In a flashback, a young girl stands in a disheveled room, calling out for her parents amid spilled liquid and overturned furniture. She tells a blood-soaked figure staggering towards her not to come any closer. The man, his face horribly mangled, reaches out and tells her to run away. The young girl, revealed to be Tosca, lets out a terrified scream. The scene shifts to the sharp, determined eyes of an adult woman. In the present, an adult Tosca sits with her arms crossed inside a rattling carriage. She dismisses the memory as just another bad dream. A brief, happier memory shows a young Tosca being lovingly embraced by her parents. Back in the present carriage, Garantia thanks Captain Antonio for taking their party along. The group travels together in the back of the wagon as it bumps along the road. Antonio explains that since his group was already heading to Moira, he should be the one thanking them for the payment, prompting the hero to ask about their destination. Mount Moira is described as a place deeply connected to the dead, where rituals are held to speak with ancestral spirits and loved ones leave offerings for fallen adventurers. The hero wonders if this means they have spirit mediums, briefly imagining a chance to speak with his own father. The priest remarks that it sounds like a death cult, while Garantia adds that the mountain village is where offerings for unrecovered adventurers are brought. She reveals that deep within the village is the Moira Shrine, where the warrior Othello is enshrined. A view of the shrine shows numerous swords left as offerings, now covered in ivy. Garantia relays information from her master, stating that Othello's soul has a weak connection to his body, but it might respond to the presence of the hero and the priestess. The hero excitedly asks if this means the actual warrior Othello could be resurrected. He then jokes that Othello would be quite shocked to learn that two members of the party are from another world. As he speaks, the priest Offriette suddenly feels ill and apologizes. She apologizes for causing the carriage to stop, and while Tosca calls it a hassle, Portia reassures her that it is fine. Portia kindly offers the ailing Offriette something to drink. Tosca impatiently tells Offriette to finish being sick and get back in the carriage, as they are close to the village, earning a sharp rebuke from Portia. Garantia tells the drivers they can get off here, since the village is nearby. Antonio questions their decision, but Garantia insists they will walk the rest of the way to shake off the dizziness and to let the Transport Guild get to their own work. The captain then asks what Portia will do. He encourages Portia to use the stop as an opportunity to speak with the hero and give him the gift she has for him, before quickly departing with the carriage. As Portia calls her captain an idiot, the hero asks about the gift she mentioned. She explains that she bought a thank you gift for him at the market to show her gratitude for him saving her life. Portia decides she will give it to him once they all arrive at the village, and the hero says he will look forward to it. The Transport Guild's carriage drives away, leaving the hero's party on the side of the road. The priest comments on how kind and cheerful Portia is, a sentiment with which the hero agrees. Their conversation is cut short as both the priest and Garantia stare at the hero in shock, demanding to know what has happened to him. Garantia points in horror, exclaiming that a huge mushroom is growing out of his head. The hero frantically feels his head, confirming it is real, and panics about whether this is normal or if he is about to gain an extra life. As he worries about going bald if he pulls it out, the priest gravely informs him that the situation is very bad. She explains the danger with a chilling fact: fungi are known to decompose dead bodies. Just then, Garantia cries out in pain, realizing something happened the moment they left the carriage. An unseen effect ripples through the air around them. Mushrooms erupt from Garantia's arm as she screams in pain and terror. The situation appears dire for the heroes. A horrifying vision shows a body completely consumed by a dense growth of mushrooms. The priest cries out for the hero, stating that she cannot see him as a black substance covers her eyes. Garantia shouts a warning to get ready, realizing they are under attack. From the surrounding woods, shadowy figures emerge, groaning as they advance on the party. The mushrooms on the hero are suddenly blasted away by an unseen force. The priest lets out a cry of fear. Garantia identifies the mysterious assault as magic. The scene opens with an image of Tosca and Portia. Garantia panics as mushrooms rapidly sprout from Edmund's body, declaring that the situation is bad. Edmund frantically tries to tear the parasitic growths from his skin, shouting for them to come off. He screams in agony as the mushrooms completely overwhelm his face. Garantia watches in horror, realizing that even if they cut the mushrooms off, they instantly grow back. Edmund weakens, stating that he can no longer move and feels his body unraveling. After seeing a mushroom crumble from residual holy magic, Garantia realizes the fungi are weak to the holy attribute and shouts for Afriette to use her power. Afriette knows she has no choice but to try and heal the hero before his body completely dissolves. She kneels over Edmund, carefully preparing a weakened holy spell that will target only the mushrooms. The holy magic envelopes Edmund's face as he lets out a pained scream. Afriette apologizes as she watches the mushrooms begin to crumble under her spell's power. Though his face is contorted in pain, Edmund reassures her that he is fine and urges her to continue the spell. He grits his teeth, enduring the painful purification process. While Afriette focuses on healing, Garantia scans the forest, unable to sense the enemy's location. She inspects a mushroom that grew from her own finger, wondering how the spores infected them so stealthily. Suddenly, a magical item on her hip begins to jingle and glow. The item is reacting to the presence of miasma, shocking Garantia as they are not inside a dungeon. Her gaze falls upon a single, unfamiliar flower nearby. The miasma detector chimes strongly, indicating that the source is just ahead. Following the signal, Garantia discovers a large field filled with the strange flowers. Her detector chimes again, confirming that the flowers are the source of the miasma. The horrifying realization dawns on her that if these flowers cover the entire mountain, then the danger is widespread. Afriette realizes the village and the mausoleum are in peril, and Garantia adds that Antonio's transport team is also in danger. Garantia desperately wonders where the enemy could be, fearing the village has already been destroyed. The healing spell finishes, and Edmund stands, confirming he can move again. Garantia warns him to wait, as his body is still recovering. Ignoring her warning, Edmund declares that with Afriette's power, they can save everyone and that they must hurry. The scene transitions through a rustle of leaves. The wheel of a carriage comes to a stop, signaling the transport team's arrival. Portia steps out of the carriage, cheerfully apologizing to a group of children for keeping them waiting. The children excitedly cheer for the arrival of Big Sister Portia. An unseen, sinister eye watches as a voice says, "You kept me waiting." A chaotic scene shows the members of the Transport Guild Shylock drinking and carousing. Portia arrives at the village, telling a group of children that she is happy to have finally come and that she's kept them waiting. She compliments one of the children on a cute flower crown she made herself. The child smiles unsettlingly, holds up another flower crown and says, "That's why." She offers the crown to Portia as other children with horrific, zombified expressions appear behind her, their mouths unnaturally wide. Portia simply says, "Sorry." She slams her staff to the ground, knocking the children away with a powerful force. One of the children, pinned to the ground by the staff, is confused by how heavy it suddenly is. Gracia appears beside Portia, apologizing for increasing her weight with his magic. He explains that he immobilized her because the situation was obviously suspicious, preventing her from moving on her own. A single, ominous flower lies on the ground nearby. Neri warns Gracia not to touch the child, pointing out that a flower is growing directly from her head. She speculates that the flowers have already reached the children's brains and seized control, making any attempt to pull them out dangerous. Antonio declares that bullying children is unacceptable as they face a crowd of villagers, all wearing the same flower crowns. The villagers approach with fixed, unnatural smiles, some with flowers grotesquely blooming from their mouths. Antonio laments the awful situation, while Gracia expresses his reluctance to kill people he knows, before Tosca spots something in the distance. She points out a plume of smoke, suggesting it could be a signal from a survivor. The smoke is rising from a large mausoleum at the edge of the village. Inside, a person clasps their hands in prayer, begging for salvation and mercy. Their prayers are directed to the warrior Othello, pleading for him to awaken and save them. An old man is seen kneeling before a large, ornate coffin inside the mausoleum. As the possessed villagers begin to batter the doors, the man cries out that they won't hold for much longer. A child screams in terror as the flower-crowned villagers break through the doors. The old man clutches his hands tighter in a desperate prayer. A strange magical energy begins to glow from his hands. Back outside, Antonio shouts for his guild members to get on the carriage and escape immediately. He orders Gracia to abandon their cargo and hurry. The old man from the mausoleum suddenly appears, pleading with them to at least take the coffin with them. He shoves the heavy coffin towards the carriage, insisting that they cannot leave it behind. The old man reveals that the coffin is the villagers' target because it contains the body of the great warrior Othello. While Gracia nervously argues they should leave it, Antonio immediately decides to bring it with them. The captain overrules him, explaining that he has a bad feeling about what would happen if Othello's body was left behind. He adds that the warrior is also an enemy of Tosca's. The guild members quickly debate their next move, agreeing they must return to the city to report the incident and focus on helping those who are still alive. As their carriage flees the village, a giant mushroom suddenly erupts from the ground in their path. Neri stares in shock at the massive fungal obstruction. A slender, barefoot figure lands softly on the road before them. A new enemy is revealed, a tall being with a wide, mushroom-like hat, carrying a bladed polearm. The driver shouts to run the figure over, but as he does, the enemy's hand glows with power. The mysterious figure effortlessly blocks the charging horses with its weapon, creating a powerful shockwave. A close-up shows the crown of flowers adorning the figure's wide hat. The carriage is violently repelled, its momentum completely halted by the attack. The figure states that it does not wish to kill all of them. It introduces itself as a demon lord's general, the gardener, declaring the area its personal garden and stating that their escape would be a problem. The gardener looks upon the chaos, lamenting what a waste it all is. It then turns its attention to Othello's coffin, which has caught fire, and says it does not wish to kill the warrior either. However, the gardener reiterates that it would be a problem if they escaped. The gardener curses, realizing the fire will ruin the warrior's body, as Neri is suddenly shown impaled by black spikes. "Oh my," the gardener says with mock surprise. Dark tendrils erupt and pull the burning coffin away as the gardener remarks on its quick getaway. The scene opens on a dark, frantic escape through the woods. Antonio curses their pursuer, while Tosca desperately hopes the creature gives up the chase. Gracia clutches a severe wound, defiantly stating that he is not going to die. Gracia mourns Neri, swearing he won't let her death go unpunished, but Tosca tells him they will have to grieve for her later. Portia anxiously asks what their next course of action should be. A diagram illustrates their bleak options: descending the mountain off-trail or turning back for their other carriage, both deemed too risky. As they consider their options, Portia notices that the coffin they are transporting has begun to glow faintly. The old man from the mausoleum explains this is a sign of revival, indicating that kin who can stir Othello's soul are nearby, which Edmund assumes refers to the hero. The old man believes that if the hero, the priestess, and the warrior can unite, they will be able to defeat their enemy. His hope is cut short as Antonio spots a new threat and shouts for everyone to get down. A massive tree crashes down directly in their path, sent flying from an unseen source above them. The impact sends the party tumbling from their damaged carriage. A devastating rain of trees descends upon them, crushing their means of escape. The survivors look on in shock and terror at the overwhelming assault. Antonio can only mutter that this must be some kind of joke as the barrage continues. He stares defiantly into the chaos as more trees crash down around them. Tosca quickly orders Portia to cling to the coffin and for both of them to brace for impact. Portia holds on tightly as the world erupts around them. Antonio makes a decision, yelling for Tosca to take the coffin and run while he and Gracia buy them time. The two men share a final, knowing smile before turning to face their doom. Tosca screams out their names as they are engulfed by the destructive torrent. The gardener is revealed, perched calmly atop a giant mushroom overlooking the destruction. Antonio defiantly taunts the general, challenging the mushroom bastard to come down and face him. The gardener lands gracefully, revealing that it had intentionally surrounded them without killing them. Mocking their desire to play, the general states that it will indulge them for about 5 seconds. The gardener sends a volley of sharp roots erupting from the ground, forcing Antonio and Gracia on the defensive. The two warriors charge forward, launching a desperate counterattack. As Antonio closes in, the gardener remarks that since he was going to die anyway, it would have liked his help in spreading its flowers. Antonio manages to grab the general, gritting his teeth and declaring that he is going to win. He apologizes for being a bastard but states his intention to make their fight a double suicide. The gardener is shocked to see that Antonio has a fire magic stone clenched between his teeth. Antonio bites down hard, shattering the stone to unleash its power. The gardener has a brief moment of surprise before reacting. It states that since it no longer needs to worry about preserving the body, its spores will be the fastest way to deal with the threat. The gardener plans to chase down the fleeing women at its leisure, knowing they no longer have a horse. A hand, already covered in mushrooms, weakly tosses the activated fire stone forward. The gardener muses that it should keep at least one of them alive to help expand its dominion. As Antonio's body is consumed by roots, the magic stone falls harmlessly to the ground. The gardener nonchalantly wonders if double suicide explosions are a common human trend. The scene shifts to a wide view of the mountain peak. Edmund's party is seen running at high speed through the forest. Edmund effortlessly carries both Offriette and Garantia as they flee towards the village. Garantia asks Edmund if his hunger is under control, and he replies that he feels fine and has grown used to his power. He explains that ever since his encounter with the jester, he has felt his strength surging as if his stomach is full. He feels he can handle his new body as well as his original one, noting that he can feel Hecate's threads circulating within him. For a brief moment, Edmund struggles to remember who he was originally. His thoughts are interrupted as Garantia shouts that she can see something at the entrance to the village. The gardener stands ready with a bouquet of its flowers. Edmund's party arrives at the village entrance to find the transport team's wrecked carriage, with Garantia noting the clear signs of a struggle but no one around. Upon opening the carriage, they find 3 unconscious children huddled inside. Edmund recognizes the tags and belts used to restrain the children, while Offriette cries out in horror, seeing that the same parasitic flowers are growing from their heads. Garantia quickly devises a plan. She will pull the flowers out while Offriette simultaneously heals the children, and she tasks Edmund with standing guard. Offriette decides to use an area of effect healing spell, Canopy of Osmanthus, to treat all 3 children at once. As the holy light of her spell washes over the children, they begin to stir peacefully while Edmund keeps a lookout for any threats. Edmund is suddenly alerted by a rustling sound from the nearby woods. A horse speaks, addressing him as hero, and Garantia explains that a beast tamer in the transport group likely enabled it to talk using a magic stone. The horse delivers a disjointed and hurried message, warning them that the enemy's objective was the coffin and that they are now heading down the mountain. The final part of the message reveals that the carriage was destroyed and everyone in the transport team was killed, unable to escape. Having delivered its warning, the horse collapses to the ground, its life fading. Edmund desperately demands more information, but Garantia concludes that the person who sent the message through the horse is already dead. The news triggers Edmund's memory of Portia promising to give him a gift upon their arrival. His hand clenches into a tight fist as grief and rage consume him. Without a word, Edmund dashes off into the village, ignoring Garantia's warning that they don't even know who the enemy is. Garantia curses his recklessness and says they must chase after him, while Afriette worries about the safety of leaving the children behind. Edmund runs alone through the eerily empty village streets. He is suddenly confronted by a massive crowd of villagers, all under the control of the flower parasites. He summons his massive, grotesque sword and carves a path through the mindless horde. A gigantic, tooth-filled maw suddenly appears before him. Blood splatters as Edmund looks up in shock from behind a wooden structure. A horrifying multi-eyed creature with crab-like claws and a cavernous mouth is revealed, towering over the controlled villagers. Edmund realizes with horror that the monster is eating the villagers, who are still alive but unable to resist. He grips his sword, preparing to attack the grotesque beast. He lunges forward, but a brilliant flash of light intercepts his strike before it can land. The force throws him backward as he wonders about the source of the mysterious light. He looks down at his sword arm in confusion. To his shock, he finds that his arm will not lift. It feels impossibly heavy, preventing him from moving it as he wishes. A powerful force presses down on him, as if a massive weight has been attached to his body. Staring at the monster, he has a sudden, dawning realization about magic that can change weight. An image of Portia's smiling face flashes in his mind. Immobilized, Edmund struggles on the ground, unable to move. The words, "magic that changes weight," echo in his thoughts. His face contorts in a mask of horrified disbelief. He whispers a single, questioning name, Portia. As the monstrous creature looms, Edmund whispers Portia's name in disbelief. He tries to rationalize the situation, hoping the shared magic is a coincidence as he steels himself to fight and save his friends. The creature's many eyes fix upon him. A memory of Portia's kind smile flashes through Edmund's mind. He groans, accepting the horrifying truth that it is her. The monster attacks. It strikes dangerously, empowered by Portia's weight manipulation magic. Edmund dodges, pleading with Portia to wake up, convinced she is being controlled. A distorted voice emanates from the monster, calling out Edmund's name. The creature's voice becomes a horrifying cacophony of stolen words and phrases from its victims, including his friends and innocent villagers. Stunned by the voices of the dead, Edmund freezes, realizing it's over. The monster roars with hunger. The innocent memory of Portia buying sweets for the village children surfaces in Edmund's thoughts. He screams that he can't let her do this, but a cold voice from the monster replies that his resistance is futile. The creature lashes out with its powerful claws. Edmund is thrown back but is surprised by the attack's effect. He looks down at his arm, which appears unharmed. He decides to lure the monster away from the village, shouting for it to follow him. He realizes that since he cannot feel pain, he will be fine even if the creature tears him apart. His resolve hardens as he vows that he will not let the controlled Portia kill anyone else. Amidst the chaos, a clear voice, Portia's, cries out from the monster, begging him to kill her. A different, desperate voice then pleads for Tosca's help. Portia's name is whispered once more. A new attack rains down from above. The monster's chorus of voices laughs and asks for help while Edmund feels his other arms suddenly grow heavy. He knows what he has to do to stop the creature. But even with this grim understanding, his heart cannot cope with the thought of killing his friend. A dark, sinister voice suddenly speaks in his mind, asking if it should eat the monster for him. The voice calls the monster a nuisance. A shadowy, fanged maw materializes from Edmund's own body. He watches as his shadow self moves, independent of his will. The monster continues to speak in the innocent voices of its victims, talking of presence and playing with friends. The shadow entity lunges at the monster with blinding speed. It unleashes a barrage of sharp, shadowy projectiles. The ground is torn asunder by the relentless assault. The massive creature is struck head-on by the shadowy force. A dark, ethereal version of Edmund stands over the wounded beast. The voices from the monster turn to screams of pain. They shout random greetings and goodbyes as the shadow continues its brutal attack. The monster is violently torn apart from the inside out. A silhouette of Edmund stands with his transformed, demonic sword. From the dissolving remains of the monster, the real Portia emerges, now free. She looks up at Edmund, weakly saying that he has saved her once again. Her pendant, a token of her gratitude, falls from the monster's dissipating form. Garantia and Afriette arrive on the scene, shouting that they have finally caught up to him. Edmund stands silently, his back to them, looking at the remains. Garantia asks if he killed the monster, scolding him for charging ahead on his own. He turns to them with a blank expression and asks, "Who are you?" With one eye now a black void, he looks past them and asks, "Where is Ugi?" The hero confronts the unknown woman who appeared where Portia once lay, demanding to know who she is and where Ugi has gone. The woman, whose face is a stitched mask, looks back, her altered eyes glowing with an unfamiliar light. Their beast girl companion expresses confusion, but the woman, Afriette, ignores her and addresses the hero directly as Ugi, telling him to speak. He can only stare back, baffled at being called by the name Ugi. His companions are bewildered by his strange behavior, asking what is wrong with him. The hero shields his face with his hands, overcome with a sudden shame and pleading for them not to look at him. The beast girl recoils, disturbed by the sudden, inexplicable change in her friend. A single tear traces a path down Afriette's stitched cheek. As she turns away from them, the beast girl calls out her name in concern. Afriette recalls a time when she was attacked by an alchemist, a time when she went mad and he saved her. She explains that a deep, instinctual feeling in her current body tells her that her savior then was not the hero, but Ugi. Addressing him as Ugi, she says that in this moment, she feels she cannot let go of his hand. She stands amidst a vision of blooming flowers, her gaze fixed on him. The hero finds himself adrift in a dark, empty void, wondering if someone just called his name. He is now sitting at a long table in the darkness, across from a slumped, shadowy figure. He questions the reality of the situation, wondering if he is dreaming and how long he has been in this bleak space. He speaks to the silent figure across the table, informing it that he intends to wake up soon. The shadow finally speaks, its voice heavy as it warns him that he is not prepared for the pain that awaits him in reality. Dark tendrils erupt from the figure and lash out, striking the hero across the face. He looks down at himself in confusion, his body now appearing wounded and bound as it was in the past. He cries out as a wave of phantom pain washes over him. He understands then that if this place is a dream, it means that the waking world is the true source of his agony. A silhouetted image of him striking the final blow against the monster flashes in his mind. The truth crashes down on him with unbearable weight. He was the one who killed Portia. In the dream, he doubles over in psychic torment, his physical body mirroring the pain as tears stream from his eyes. He clutches the memory of his sword, tormented by the thought that if someone else, anyone else, had been reincarnated in his place. If a true hero, smarter, stronger and more decisive, had been there instead, they might have saved Portia before she was forced to die. He kneels before a memory of his fallen friend, apologizing for not being the real hero who could have saved her. The shadow figure warns him that dwelling on these thoughts is slowly destroying him. It tells him that his memories are painful and offers a simple solution: just hand them over. The figure promises that if he relinquishes the memories, he will feel better and be able to sink into oblivion without feeling a thing. A faint light breaks through the oppressive darkness. He feels the distinct and gentle sensation of someone holding his hand. He remembers Portia's final moments, the truth of her sacrifice cutting through his despair. He hears her last words, thanking him for allowing her to die as herself. His eyes snap open, his perspective shattered and reformed by the memory. He turns to the shadowy figure and defiantly refuses to hand over his memories. The dark figure simply watches him, its offer rejected. The hero declares that no matter how much it hurts to remember, he must hold on to the pain and not abandon the memories of his friend. He sees a vision of Portia lying peacefully among a bed of flowers. He vows to carry all the feelings she left behind and to continue living, no matter the cost. The shadow figure simply states that his choice is too bad. It vanishes into the darkness, musing that this is why the taste is so good. Back in reality, a gentle hand touches his. The hero looks up, his eyes clearing from the internal nightmare. Afriette looks down at him, tears in her eyes as she asks if he is Ugi. He looks back at her, his own tears finally falling as he says her name. She gently takes his hand, which still grips the pendant that was once Portia's. She offers him quiet comfort, telling him that he did his best. She calls him by his true name, Ugi.